Beautiful.
Welcome in. We appreciate you hanging with us here on this Thursday afternoon as we get you ready for Thursday night football. Yes, but also Sunday. We combine the two slates, prime time, and well, technically Saturday and Sunday, right? Eric Lindquist, myself, Mike Awesemo is producing. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed first and foremost. And we do have Saturday football, and it's not bowl season that at least we're focusing on for the next half hour.
Yeah, as far as I know, we have football. I mean, there's a million things going on, a million moving parts. It's all the world's going 2020 on us again. It's pretty crazy. So trying to keep up with the news, trying to stay apprised of situations because, now you have Lockett, you have so many other things in the Sunday slate that's gone haywire. Saturday is going to be bonkers. And, I'm really looking forward to talking some football, kind of just making that the focus here. And whoever's on the field is on the field.
Yeah, here's what I'd say about that. Just kind of a big picture takeaway from your point is that of all the leagues out there, that makes sense because you only have 16, now 17 weeks to play a football game. Of all the leagues, the NFL will do everything humanly possible to avoid even a postponement. That may mean moving a game from Saturday to Tuesday or what have you, but they will do everything possible to avoid a cancellation and beyond that to avoid even moving it to like the end of the season, regular season. So I'm with you. The games will go on. We just don't know who the hell's out there at the moment.
Yeah, no big deal. Just, the players that you're paying to watch and see and watch on TV and whatever else. I mean, it's just bonkers. But again, I think we're drawing pretty good here for Thursday night, at least. So that's a plus.
Let's look at this tonight. And, Ben and I were talking about this on the betting show earlier. I always am curious where you stand just as far as how you see this game. I love, and it's contrary to what we've seen from Thursday night football, but the two things that I really like is I don't see the Chiefs getting swept, especially as they looked early in the year to how they are now, E. And also, I really, and again, it's opposite of what we see a lot on Thursday night, but I really like the over. I like a lot of points in this game.
Well, I think Vegas does too. Anytime you see 53.5 is the number we're working with. It's actually trailed up to 54. I saw 54.5 earlier. So
Thursday night,
you and everybody else is expecting points.
No.
I will say the Chiefs 6 in a row. The defense has been really kind of the stalwart of this football team. So it's very counterintuitive to what we think of Patrick Mahomes football teams, especially what we've seen the last 2 years out of the Chiefs, both Super Bowl appearances here for them. Their defense is starting to get it done. But I think just because we have, I'm saying we're drawing well in terms of the offenses. You do have Jones and Fortsit that are going to be completely, those are gigantic injuries that they're going to have here. Jones specifically, is kind of the guy that I'm looking at. He's going to be out here for this one, their defensive interior guy, and he's just a big piece of that team. And I'm looking at him right now as a massive defensive hole for this Chiefs team. So I think you're right. I do like points here in this ball game. I don't know. It feels like a pretty efficient line. And I think Vegas has been very efficient with both of these teams all season long. Chargers 7-6 against the spread, Chiefs 6-7. So I do expect, that -3 is about as efficient as it gets. If you want to fire that off, you're a crazy person, but I expect points too. So I'm looking forward to this one.
The two quarterbacks are right there at the top. We have our own, if it's a showdown single game projection that we're looking at specifically for Thursday night football on Awesemo, or if it's throughout the slate over the weekend, which we'll get to for Jock Market. We have our specific projections that Alex has put together, as well as the fair IPO price, the value, if you will, for each one of these players. And then it's on Eric to kind of work through the specifics, if you will. So we've got the two quarterbacks. Let's just put them on ice. And I do that for one reason, is because we've got Tyreek Hill and Austin Eckler, to a lesser extent, maybe the return of Keenan Allen. You've got some big play guys that we normally don't have this big of a collection of big play guys outside of the quarterback on a Thursday night. So we'll get to Mahomes and Herbert in a second, especially since you like points and I like points, and I think we're trending towards that direction. But Hill, Eckler, let's start with those two beasts on each side. Either of these guys have a good shot at outperforming the quarterbacks and really being the top player, giving you that necessary payout on Jock Market.
So Eckler is good to go. I mean, he was questionable. It sounds like he's going to be playing here in this one. My big concern is that there could be some limitations that exist around him. Not that you're going to put him in bubble wrap in like the biggest game that you've had all season long. Every game from here on out for any team in playoff consideration, it's a gigantic game. So I don't want to put too much hyperbole around it, but this is not just for in terms of this. They would have the leg up in the division as 2-0 against them. So I mean, that would be a huge win here for the Chargers. You want Austin Eckler, phenomenal pass catching back here, half point jock market. But I am worried that there might be some limitations coming on a short week here for him. So I would be shying more away from him. And, Tyreek Hill, another guy that's just been very, very volatile all season long, a guy who has that 45, 50 point upside from time to time that we've seen. The Philadelphia game really sticks out in my mind. Sorry to bring it up. But,
no, it's
it is what it is. And Tyreek Hill has that kind of playmaking upside. So if I was going to go to one of the two, it would be Hill, but I think I'm shying away from both of them at the top. Yes, there's not a lot of meat on the bone for Mahomes or Herbert, but on Jock Market, I think you can still find a nice number, even combining those two and saying those two. One of them is probably going to end up in the $25 slot. Another one it's very hard to imagine one isn't going to be, in the $2, $3, $4 slot. So I actually like getting to quarterbacks more than normal in this game. So I just want to throw that out to begin with.
You know what? That's a perfect way to then shift it back to the quarterbacks, because I tried to move you one way and you're a rock.
No, what I did was I just said that I don't want to do the thing that you guided me to do. And I'm going to go to the quarterback because, again, here's what it is that
you sat out in the middle of the room and said, no, I'm not moving.
I'm not leaving. I'm not effing leaving. That's kind of how I handle it. Wolf of Wall Street, everybody. But I like getting to the quarterback simply because when you're getting paid out $25 per share for a top place finish here, and then it goes to 20, looking at a fair value of 1569 and 1730, maybe Mahomes nears towards $20, but then that becomes an easy stay away. If it sits around this fair value, if you're able to get him in the pre-IPO phase around $15, $16, $17, a little bit less than that value, even if you get him around $18, I think there's upside because I find it difficult that, if you combine shares of Mahomes and Herbert, then at least one of them is not going to have a very, very good chance at being one, if not both of them going 1-2 here in this game. Of course, they stick out in the projections. If you want to pair Mahomes with Hill, be my guest. But for me, I'm kind of avoiding those studs, Hill, Eckler, Allen, Kelsey, just because I know that they're going to be very, very high valued. If I'm going to go to anybody, I'm going to take some shots on some of these ancillary options from the Chargers run game. And I know that sounds really, really gross because I don't even know how much I want to do it in DFS, but I could see Justin Jackson getting a massive workload here.
Wow.
I'm serious. It's a short week. If it wasn't a short week, I wouldn't be as concerned. But Austin Eckler, he's a beast. We've seen some ridiculous weight room videos, whatever else. I don't care. It's 4 days rest from playing an NFL game and having an ankle injury. I'm just throwing it out there. I think you could get some definite value by trying to take shots on them at very, very cheap.
Can I just ask real quick, how much of, and I say us because I just want to make sure that you're on the similar page with me, where we're expecting points, right? We're expecting a higher scoring game than not. At some point, though, doesn't the running game get sacrificed if we're talking about a shootout, especially since you're getting to the two quarterbacks first? Or is this more like a long shot play in the sense of, if the Chargers are up, maybe they're running it and they need somebody other than Eckler to run the football?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So I think that there's multiple paths to being able to find some kind of value out of this. And, I am in DFS, especially on FanDuel, going to try to make some things work where I take the narrative and I think being strong with narratives in terms of injuries can be a very beneficial thing. My biggest day of NBA DFS last year was basically making a strong stand against Chris Paul not being healthy. And I just played like nearly 100% campaign at like 4 or 5% in the playoffs. He ended up playing like 35 minutes or something. Chris Paul just couldn't go. Now, Austin Eckler plays football. This is a little bit different. Like if he's able to wrap this thing up and be somewhat competent, awesome. But I have to just throw it out there. I think there's a very, very good shot that he's limited. And if he's going to be limited, everybody's going to look in hindsight and say, oh, $2.37 of a fair value here for Justin Jackson. Like, oh, obviously he was a great play, but that's an armchair quarterback kind of thing to do after the fact. I want to be aggressive right up front and say, you know what, in the event that he's limited, I have a guy who has legitimate $15, $20 per share upside at $2 or $3 right now. So I'm going to be getting to them a little bit more than normal. The short week just only helps me a little bit to feel better about the investment.
All right. So of the two quarterbacks, which one do you like the best? Who are you getting to the most out of across the board here? Because you mentioned that it's going to be.
This is disgusting. This is so hard because if you go on my Twitter from 5 years ago, 6 years ago, my biggest stand I've ever made is that I thought Patrick Mahomes would retire the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL if he stayed healthy.
Take.
I made that when he was in college at Texas Tech because I was like, oh, the ball, he's got a cannon. And I felt really good about that take. I like Justin Herbert so much more. And not just because, everybody knows Quack Quack. If you watched any of the NBA Live Before Lock shows, married into a duck family, and Greg took that to places unknown that we don't even want to talk about. But Justin Herbert's incredible. He's my favorite quarterback to watch in the NFL. I think he's got the most natural arm talent I've ever seen. That roll right 60-yard cannon that he took last week was just like one of the dumbest throws I've ever seen. They're so equal in this spot. Like, they are just so unbelievably equal that it is difficult. I will say, I think Eckler being limited maybe hurts some of the dump off abilities that you're going to have for some of the safety valve you would have for Justin Herbert. And by all intents and purposes, every skill position is back to full health here with CEH, with Kelsey, with Hill, with everybody there in Kansas City. So I think Mahomes, just because of his weaponry, is probably in a better spot.
Okay.
Slightly. But I mean, we're talking like
splitting
1 or
hairs.
2 points.
Sure. Yeah. You split hair. I don't have any hairs to split, not at least on top of my head.
On your chin?
Yeah, but that's painul, man. You ever get no, it's easy.
It's like 40-year-old virgin where he's doing the wax.
Right.
We don't want that.
No. I would never wax a beard by any means.
No. But I would absolutely not. But I was just saying that that's the pain equivalent. It's like the ripping of the face or other things.
Well, he was down low. Like that ripping was down low. I think for us here, for people that are not used to having that happen to you down in that sensitive area, it's going to hurt more than your face. Yeah. Like, you ever rip a Band-Aid? You're a kid. You ever rip a Band-Aid off your chin or something like that? That's all it is.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. Don't do it.
No. What about Mike Williams?
I love Mike Williams as a human being, but
I feel like Mike Williams has so much volatility that Keenan Allen is back as well, Eric. We do have a fair IPO value of just over $9 for the guy, but he is the seventh highest projected player on the board. And on top of that, I think it's mitigated by Keenan Allen's return. But we have seen Mike Williams, granted few and far between, we have at least seen Mike Williams dominate a slate or at least a game with Keenan Allen on the other side. So maybe having Eckler and Allen back together could help the focus of the defense move away from Williams. And now all of a sudden at $9.04, he might be able to slide his way in as a top 3 player. Might, I said, operative word. I'm not suggesting, I said might.
Yeah, I love Mike Williams so much as a real life football player, but I will say there is a massive range of outcomes. And all you have to do is go through the game log to be able to see it. I mean, we have 22s to start off the season, 36, 39.5, but they're smattered in the middle of like 7.9, 7.3, 7.8, 3.9 on JockMKT. Just a ridiculous range of outcome that you're looking at for him. He is far from a safe thing. If you're looking for somebody that could possibly vault you up the board, sweet. But like, it's very hard for me to want to invest in a guy where, my number one outcome, I'm looking at like just short of doubling my money. If I'm going to be looking to just try to make $7, $8 per share, I'm going to go to the quarterbacks. I'll just spend more to get far more security. Their range of outcomes is much tighter as it is. And Mike Williams, yes, he could vault you up the board, but he feels more like an in-game play based on trying to account for a big play. See if you can snag a share in the moment as he makes those big plays, because that's what he is he's somebody that you'll know when you need to have Mike Williams. So I'm definitely not going to be going and getting him in the pregame IPO phase. Even at that $9 mark, I'm just thinking through it. There are too many pieces in this game, too many weapons, too many guys that can finish high up there. It's just a really hard piece to get to on this slate.
All right. Anybody else that's worth a mention? If it's a Byron Pringle, a Jared Cook, maybe even a Hardman. Although I think Pringle might be the guy who has stood out more often than not as the third option, if you will. So maybe Pringle is kind of that low. Now, again, you already gave out Guyton, right? Earlier, as far as
I did not give out Guyton, but I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
Justin Jackson. So, I mean, for me, it's just buying into a narrative where you could get a guy at $2 who could legitimately get volume, 10 carries, 12 carries. They've been involved in getting some of these carries. I mean, Eckler got dinged up, and that was why you saw more there last week for both Kelly and for him. and for Justin Jackson. But I'm looking at this other side for Kansas City. I mean, Byron Pringle has been on the field more here of late, 72%, 61% of snaps. He's over 50% there. You also get some random special teams value. He's out there returning punts. So, if he takes one to the house, which is just, it feels so rare nowadays. I mean, that was the weird thing about the Chicago Bears and Packers game, is how many just special teams, ridiculous plays there were. Helps to have Jakeem Grant. He's a little bullet, but I'm looking at these other guys. I generally on full slates don't really go to Byron Pringle, don't really go to Demarcus Robinson. I'm more than happy if the value is right, if they are cheap, if they're not getting priced up. I think that if you're going to get shares of Patrick Mahomes, why not take some shares of these $2 guys, $3 guys? See if they can't vault you up the board with a long touchdown, because with Patrick Mahomes at the helm, with this entire secondary here that we're looking at for the Chargers, that I expected more out of here. I think defensively, it's just been a huge problem. Derwin James is questionable here. I think I'm going to be paying big attention to him. One of the more game-changing safeties that exists in the NFL. So a lot of injury news still to kind of come through, but I'm happy to take shots on cheap guys. If they get up to that $3, $4, $5 spot, just an easy stay away.
All right, so let's move to the big slate then, right? I think we covered as much as we can here tonight, and getting you ready from the obvious to maybe the not so obvious to the deeper dive plays here on the single game. So let's move to the main slate, and we're going to factor in everything here, right, across the board, the extra games that are available to us. We have quarterbacks anywhere you want to start here, but I wonder if it's similar to what we had tonight, where again, you're looking at Josh Allen, Tom Brady, before you get to a Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, even Chris Godwin. It's pretty interesting. Chris Godwin pops up there a bunch, but look, it's always going to be a lot of quarterbacks at the top. The one guy that I am interested to see what you think about, because I don't know if his value has necessarily been impacted quite yet with the news that you mentioned at the top with Tyler Lockett on the COVID list, but DK Metcalf, we have him projected for just over 19 points. Eric, with the value of $7.40, that's pretty cheap.
I'm going to have so much DK Metcalf. I'm right there with you. I think this is a hard spot to really ignore. I think there's also ancillary options you can kind of target here. We did see in the running game, Rashad Penny. I just hate this. I hate the fact that this is a Rams matchup where you have to kind of try to make it happen, because I think the Rams defense is just taking another step up. We saw in that primetime game against Arizona, Von Miller just kind of infused into the defense for the first time, really, because, they obviously didn't have a whole lot of time to catch him up to speed. And now he's there. He looks effective. You put him on the other side here on the pass rush from Aaron Donald, and you've got problems. You get Jalen Ramsey back into that mix, you've got problems. This Rams defense is going to be very, very formidable coming down the stretch. We know DK Metcalf can be an absolute monster. I think you were probably looking at that matchup with him and Ramsey, so long as Ramsey's off the COVID list and good to go here for Sunday. I think he's going to be, that's what it looks like. Again, we have so many moving parts, so keep close eye on that. Maybe Lockett has 2 negative tests, but it looks like he's going to be missing here for Sunday. I think DK Metcalf makes for a phenomenal play. He's risen up the board in every projection system. It becomes a one-man wrecking crew here defensively. I think you could even be looking at Gerald Everett being a guy to invest in. He's been on the field an absolute ton. I think he's going to have to get targeted more. He's had a decent enough red zone share since Russell Wilson returned 2 touchdowns through his 3 games since returning here in week 12. So I think Gerald Everett makes some sense on the other side, but God, Freddie Swain even has some a Q tag next to him. We've got so many issues that exist now without Tyler Lockett there. Going to be a very, very tough ask, but DK Metcalf serviceable to say the least.
Anybody else that a non-quarterback that we can look at? And again, I think you're right. I mean, we have to start clearly with what's going on in Seattle, DK Metcalf. And then also it's great to mention some other guys, especially because they're going to be great value with that. Let me cheat, because I asked anybody else outside of the quarterback spot. What about Russell Wilson? What about Russ now in this game with this matchup, specifically how shitty he's looked? But if you're high on Metcalf, I assume that he's going to have a big night. It's going to be Russell Wilson throwing him the football.
Yeah, I'm thinking Russell Wilson's okay, but I'm not jumping at the bit to try to go after a guy that legitimately could get sacked 6-7 times here in this game. I mean, he's going to be running for his life in a lot of spots. He hasn't been nearly as effective this season. I do expect a bounce back from him at some point. I just don't want to be picking on the Rams defense. If it ends up being the guy who puts up $25 per share, sorry, I apologize, but I think there's just so many better spots to invest. Obviously, I don't know if they're on the main slate here for Jock Market. Obviously, Tampa Bay is a spot you could be looking at, but I don't believe that they are. I believe that that's going to be something that's infused if you're playing the entire weekend slate. But I'm looking at some guys like Devontae Adams. Of course, he's got massive upside, extremely expensive there in Green Bay. But we're starting to see him really start to return to that prominence of a wide receiver one, like for the entire NFL, not just on his team, obviously. But Cooper Kupp, of course, is another guy that you can get up to. And on the other side of the Seattle game, he's the most secure thing you have on a week-to-week basis. But if I'm looking deep here, we just got word Jalen Waddle earlier in the day, too, which is just beyond devastating to my year-long teams because he's been a PPR monster. Devontae Parker, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, it's such an easy pairing for me there in this spot going up against the Jets. It's a super low 41 total, not the most intriguing total that exists on the board, but I just don't see where else Miami's going to go with Jalen Waddle off the field. I mean, he's been such a huge integral part of their offense. Myles Gaskin is now on the COVID list as well. We're looking at, Duke Johnson being possibly out there out of the backfield. I mean, it is such a weird, wonky spot here for Miami, but there's nothing you can possibly say about facing the Jets. I mean, the Jets are as bad of a defense as it really gets. Yep. I want to try to invest if the price is right.
I'm going to go off the beaten path just a second here. But again, look, this is what we talk about, right? It can't just be 30 minutes of talking about Tyreek Hill, Chris Godwin, and Stephon Diggs. Here's the thing, and I don't have any data or metrics behind it because we don't have what happened with Urban Meyer happening often. Everybody loves the Jags. Now I saw the line move a couple of points. The one thing that I think people have already decided and determined in this game is it is going to be an absolute slop fest. It's going to be 10-3, and it's just going to be two really, really bad offenses. You know what's worse? Both of their scoring defenses. This, to me, has the chance, including tonight, to be the highest total on the board, okay? Bank that. Lock that up. I know that's not even the right show here. But I want to take advantage of that. I want to be able to identify who could, and it's not going to be everybody. Maybe it's just Brandon Cooks, or maybe it's just James Robinson now with a new lease on life, thanks to Urban Meyer gone. My point, though, Eric, is that it's probably a game that a lot of people will ignore, even in the betting DFS world. I think you have a really good shot at this being a high-scoring game because bad defenses are going to take precedent over bad offenses.
You did that entire thing without saying Houston and Jacksonville, and I find that to be extremely impressive, that I think everybody knew who you were talking about without actually saying the two teams. But James Robinson, have you ever seen a total where a team fired a coach and all of a sudden the line got hammered on that side? Jacksonville went from 3 to 5 in the aftermath of Urban Meyer. They're laying 5 at home in the absence of Urban Meyer, which should just tell you, holy crap. I mean, holy crap. James Robinson, if you have him, I think this is just an unequivocal spot. It's going to be a tough talking point in DFS. I think we're going to have to look at some shy away spots. But if the price is right here, I'm telling you right away, James Robinson is going to get the workload you've been hoping out of James Robinson, because everything Jacksonville does from here on out to the end of the season is going to cater to every wish and desire of Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be revolved around him. Maybe he decides he wants to be put in bubble wrap, but you'll know that ahead of time. But James Robinson, all these pass catchers, whether it's, Laviska Shenault, whether it's Marvin Jones, you're going to have some opportunities to be looking at Jacksonville. I think sharp bettors were definitely bullish on getting rid of Urban Meyer. I think we all have to be. It seemed like he was just kind of bitter about some of these dudes, was doing things his way. Obviously the Lambeau thing, I don't even know how to explain that. But James Robinson, definitely going to be a nice investment on Jock Market. I think as long as you're looking at a decent fair value, I'll also say this might be the first buy low opportunity on Jock Market for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence could have just he could be unchained here in this spot and be able to do whatever he wants. Him and the offensive coordinator, who's now going to be the guy who's taking over the head coaching duties here. You could just see him chuck it. And I will say he's been chucking it poorly of late, but a lot of that was under the tutelage of one Urban Meyer. Right. They trimmed the fat. So I think this might be a good situation for Jacksonville, as do bettors.
All right, we're winding down here. Again, hit that promo code if you haven't already. Awesemo, we're going to match your first deposit up to $50 on Jock Market. I saw Alvin Kamara super low at $5.10 is a fair IPO price. I understand that he's going up against a very difficult matchup on the ground, at least. But anytime you have Kamara kind of in that same group as a down Elliott, a down Barkley, even a down Chubb, it kind of jumped out. Is there anybody that you like from either a value standpoint or from a don't keep it simple, I guess, stupid. One of those KISS, right?
Yeah, I really don't like Kamara. He's Sunday night game against Tampa Bay. We're looking at this Tampa Bay team. We know the kind of run funnel that they can definitely be. They're 11-point. The Saints are 11-point dogs here going into Tampa Bay right now. It's a brutal spot here. Overall, Tampa Bay second in defense, first in offense, according to PFF gradings. I mean, it's such a brutal spot. And Taysom Hill and him basically got there all through the running game against the Jets. And I just think Taysom Hill isn't Kamara gets so much value from dump offs, even in half-point PPR, simply because it opens up the field and he can go and make plays. Maybe they design things, but I think he's always going to be a little bit overvalued in those kind of spots where if they can't run the ball effectively, this team is going to have major, major problems with Taysom Hill at quarterback.
Awesome, brother. Anything on the way out that you'd like to mention or promote?
Well, I've got a couple just like notes of things that I could just list off. Pay close attention. This Baltimore situation, I don't think that we're going to see Lamar Jackson, but it sounds like he's going to do everything in his power to be out there. He didn't practice again today. We'll see tomorrow. Tomorrow is the day where if guys aren't practicing that have some of these injuries coming into Sunday, you need to just start being hyper aware and have a contingency plan. And if you're basically in the pregame IPO phase, which is the number one time you can extract value, just be ready to fire away on some uncomfortable spots, even quarterbacks that are going to be backups for guys like Lamar Jackson, backups for Baker Mayfield. Guys like this are going to have value on Jock Market. A quarterback is such an even distribution. So Tyler Huntley, somebody who definitely he's Lamar Jackson light. He'll be out there running around. Probably be a guy that's not a huge DFS play. I mean, he's still cheap over there too, but I'm absolutely in love with for a place like Jock Market.
Awesome, brother. Always a pleasure, my friend. Nailed it. We're going to do it again next week.
Appreciate you.
We have more to look at. Don't worry, here across the board for Jock Market. Use that promo code and make sure you're following, of course, at Eric Lindquist, at Shander Show for me. Mike Awesemo, thanks for producing. All righty. We'll see you next week, brother.
See you, my guy.